Hi, you're listening to Boggy Talk, Faith Conversations in the Mud, a resource of Church on Bayshore.
Well, hey, thanks for joining us today on Boggy Talk. We're in almost the middle of September.
Middle of September.
Alrighty. All things fall going on.
How many cups of pumpkin spice have you had, Ross?
Yeah.
Ross? Wow, I don't know if you've ever called me Ross before. I have had one. I had it on. It was still August actually. But I was like, oh man, I gotta have a pumpkin spice drink.
Well, Starbucks is officially serving it.
They are.
It's
I
official.
also saw they're gonna start having protein drinks.
Interesting.
Which I was like, it's gonna be like $19.
I was about to say they're gonna be like
Yeah, that's true.
$30.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's crazy.
I know.
That'll be good though.
Getting in with the macros, you know.
Yeah.
Gotta do that.
Offset the sugar so you don't,
Yeah.
Sugar rush.
Yeah, y'all know I worked at Starbucks for a little while, right?
That's
and
right.
That's where I met you.
That made me not want to drink Starbucks because I was like, there's that much sugar.
Yeah,
Like,
so much sugar.
because you would make that and you'd be like, oh my gosh. And people would legitimately come in and order a drink that had like 4 pumps of the syrup, which is like 120 calories and like 40
Just
carbs,
sugar.
and then add sugar.
And get more.
Wow.
More.
That's crazy.
I'm like, I don't think you understand how this works.
Yeah.
Do you? But you can't.
There's
say
already
that,
sugar
you
in
know?
it. Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
I used to love Frappuccinos. Like that was the thing for a while, right?
I don't know.
The
why I'm
whipped
laughing
cream.
so
Well,
hard
it's
at
just
that,
like
Wyatt.
when I lived in Korea specifically, that we would be like, there wasn't a
Tim-colored
Starbucks.
drink.
Yeah, that's right. There wasn't like a Starbucks near us, and so you had to go to Seoul. And when we would go to
Okay.
Seoul, we'd be like, we've got to get.
Frappuccinos.
Yeah, I don't know
It
why.
reminds me of Zoolander.
The caramel one specifically. Now I can't have them because I'm like, my
Yeah,
mouth
it's
shrivels
too
up
much.
because of the
Mocha
sugar.
Frappuccino.
Yeah, that is Zoolander.
Yes. You know, Steve
Oh,
Renna.
that's so funny.
Steve Renna is the most manly man
Yes.
on our staff.
But he drinks the girliest drink.
He does. He
I
drinks
thought
the
he didn't
pink
even
drink.
like coffee.
He
Oh, because he
drinks the
doesn't
pink
like coffee.
The
drink.
pink
Yeah.
No
drink
way.
from Starbucks, and he
That's
like
funny.
not just like
He likes
he
it.
likes it.
He likes it.
Yeah. So
he's
if you want to
addicted to that.
appreciate Steve, if you'll
Yeah,
buy him
Pastor
whatever
Appreciation Month
whatever
is
the
coming.
pink drink is
Okay.
from Starbucks, he
Dragon
loves
refresher or
it.
something.
It is a refresher. I'm not.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't drink those.
Well, because it's fall, we always.
Do you
still
like
have to
pumpkin
get-
spice?
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Same thing. I don't like the actual pumpkin spice latte because it's too sugary.
Okay.
So every once in a while, because I don't even drink sugar in my coffee, but
Yeah.
every once in a while I'll do. If you just do an Americano
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I
with
do like
one
that.
pump of whatever
Yeah.
then it's like a little bit sweeter. But
Do you know that I have a deep affection for pumpkin spice?
I remember you
Okay.
sharing that last year when we talked about
Yeah.
pumpkin
I'm not like wearing
spice, yeah.
Uggs and putting flannels
Your-
on and
your
all that.
Flannel,
you know.
your big
Yeah.
hat.
It's too hot for those flannel pictures
Oh,
here in
man.
It's
Florida.
all things pumpkin spice, not just Starbucks.
I do love
pumpkin
all
spice.
things.
Okay.
Yeah.
I people sent me seriously. It's pretty weird, I guess, that I like it this much and people know it. But people sent me like Jeremiah's apparently has like pumpkin
Oh.
spice, and they like
Okay.
sent me a message like you should go. I'm like, I am going
It's
to
just
get that. at some
overboard.
point.
I feel
Of
like
I-
You do?
There's so many,
ices?
so many things.
I like walking to people's
Pumpkins-
house that have pumpkin spice
The smell
burning.
it.
Now, like a
Yeah.
pumpkin spice candle, yeah, but I just don't like the flavor. It's just, I mean, I don't hate it, but
You
I
like
just,
But it's
candy
like
corn
that's-
a lot.
I
Yeah,
hate
right.
candy corn. That's the worst thing ever.
Candy corn's wax.
It's
That is
why
really
I don't
weird.
understand.
It's
If you ever
trash.
watch
Get that
those
outta
videos
here.
of how candy corn is made, and you're like, why? Who decided this was a good idea for people to eat? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just, it's terrible.
Will?
Well, I think
That
before we
concludes Boggy Talk,
that's
right?
right. That's
we
all
go.
we need to say before we dive into any
No.
content, though. I do feel like we need to issue
Don't do it.
a recantation. Is that a word? We got to
Yes.
recant
I think we
repent
should.
in ashcloth. or
Repent.
ashcloth.
Goodness
And-
gracious.
And
I mean, I'm
our
happy for this
predictions
blunder
about
that I-
Florida State, we were very wrong.
Yes, we
about
We were wrong.
Florida State versus Alabama. Now the jury's not out yet on
True.
Alabama could be this year's Florida State from last year and just turn out to be terrible. But
Yeah.
but impressive win, Seminoles. Good job.
Yeah, impressive win.
Yeah.
What was that?
Impressive
Okay.
win. I get it. I
Just
feel
wanted to
so
hear it
bad
one
for
more
Florida
time.
State after last year. I would love to see them undefeated and then lose to Florida in the end of the season. That'd be great.
That would be
They
that would
really
be great for Florida.
I was trying to look at their schedule and I was like, they're really not playing anybody after
they've got
Alabama and Florida. So hopefully,
Yeah,
you
no
know, it's a
Clemson,
good
no Miami.
season.
Yeah, they've got the
Yeah.
road is paved for them to get to the ACC
And
championship.
garnet and gold.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
This
It's
true.
there.
Yeah. Well, switching gears here. a lot. So we're going to be talking about some just things that have been going on in the news lately. And a couple of weeks ago, another very, very tragic in Minnesota, there was a shooting at a Catholic school. And so we just kind of wanted to talk through some of that, our response, as believers, Christians, the world, their response to it, maybe some high talking points with articles and things, that come out with that. So to begin with, there's an acknowledgement of this major tragedy. And I think that we see a lot in the news and social media, all sorts of things that people come out and say. What do you guys feel about initial reactions?
I can tell that you and Chris are good life group leaders because you went from like icebreaker to like, now we're going to talk about predestination. Like how when people are doing, what's your favorite whatever, and then you have to transition it. But
it's difficult, actually.
Yeah.
That was difficult.
I always try to make some random connection. Yeah. Last night in life group, we were talking about bitterness. So I asked the icebreaker question was, what's the worst thing you've ever had? And they didn't know what we were talking about. It's like, so the connection is, and then there were some moans and groans.
You might say pumpkin spice?
No,
Okay,
I should have said that though.
Okay.
It's not the worst though.
No, yeah, you should
sorry
say
to
that.
take us off.
No.
Yeah, that was my fault. Yeah. I mean, I think anytime there's a school shooting, I mean, there should be an appropriate pause, I think, in our spirit, and because what tragedy, to think that children are a place that should be safe, where they're learning, preparing for their future, and in many cases lives are taken, and certainly stability for others is threatened. I think I mean, for me, I go back, I remember hearing about like the Jonesboro, I think, school shooting and others, but the first one I can really remember is, as most 90s kids, is the Columbine tragedy. I was in high school, and I think I came home, and it was like unfolding because I was on the East Coast, and it was happening in Colorado, and just you're like feeling so like sorry for those people, but then as a kid, and I mean as a parent, you're also like empathizing, like what it would be like, and imagining what it would be like to be in that situation.
Yeah. I think that's a good perspective to start with, because I think that's a common ground. Like that's the first one that I really remember. Since I'm a few years older, I was in college when that happened, but I remember we watched, and I felt like everything kind of stood still for a little bit, and everyone was tuned in to this shooting. And I mean, there were songs written, right? There were songs written like the Michael W. Smith, "This Is Your Time." There were stories. I mean, there's always a song for everything. You would recognize the song. I mean, it was like a big. That was her. That one of the girls. I don't remember her name. But that was a story that came out of Columbine.
Cassie Bernal.
Yeah, somehow.
Yeah, look at you. So you do know this song. Look at you. You do know this song.
I don't know her, but I don't know. I mean, I don't
story.
know that song, but I know Cassie Bernal was one of the believers.
Yeah, and so
Rachel
I think
Scott.
there you go. And I think like. Other shootings that have happened since then. I think, several years later, there was a mass shooting at Virginia Tech. So you go to a college, university, where over 30 people were killed. And that was another pause. But if you track it, really, I think what we have to recognize about where we are now is that we do recognize the tragedy, but we just move on so quickly because we're used to it. Or maybe not used to it, but conditioned that this is now part of reality.
Yeah, you're right.
And that is grievous.
Yeah, I think you're right. It felt like when Columbine happened, it was, I think that was one of the first ever situations like that in that sort of environment. And so it stuck longer, and all of these things came out of it. But it does seem like now whenever it happens, unfortunately, it's more common, and it just feels, I don't know, it doesn't.
Yeah, I think that has probably a lot to do with the internet and social media, and I think it probably has less to do with that it is more common, and more to do with the fact that we're just bombarded with so much information and moving on to the next thing already versus having those common sources. I mean, again, this is a whole nother podcast. There are problems with having, a few news sources. As John Mayer says, when you own the information, you can bid it all you want. So, anybody know what song that's from? Come on, really?
I mean, I know John Mayer, but
Waiting
I can't.
on the World to Change.
Oh,
But
yeah,
anyway,
there you go.
So that's problematic, but I think there was such a shared experience,
Right.
and so now it's not, and I think we'll get to this in a minute. And if you stay on that, you can begin to focus on an angle related to it. And so I think we're just always moving forward, and then, but I will pause there and say, like, it really bothers me the number of people who their moving forward is already in their agenda related to this issue versus just pausing and mourning with those who mourn. I mean, this is tragic.
Yeah.
Tragic.
Absolutely.
So
I think, in any tragedy, I've heard people that have gone through really difficult situations, and they said that before. That's one of the hardest things, too, is that how quickly the world does move on, and your world has been completely shattered and everything changed, and everyone else just the next day just picks back up. And because of our onslaught of media and everything, that happens, I think, at a more rapid pace.
we got to go back to debating Cracker Barrel.
That's right.
Yeah.
Seriously, wasn't that like the same time?
It was around the same
Yeah.
time, yeah.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that was it wasn't a meme, but it was something. It was an article going around about why isn't there the same level of outrage, and I don't know if that's a fair
It's rage
equivocation.
baiting,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, I don't know that's a fair equivocation there, but it is a sentiment for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, our next point, this is not controversial at all, but especially in the South and the Bible Belt, Christians and gun control. So I think, like, typically it seems like...
All right, I think this is the end of our... this has been a nice run on Boggy Talk, guys.
Boggy Talk.
Yeah. It seems to be very one-sided, I think. I don't know. The media likes to point it.
Yeah, I
to
think the
portray it
media
that way, for sure.
likes to make it one-sided, and I would say the one-sidedness of it in the faith community depends on what faith community you're a part of. In terms of more conservative, more liberal, even in denominations. You see that if you just Googled Christians and gun control.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Because I wanted to know what I needed to believe. Just kidding. But I think just because I was curious what comes up, most of the first few articles that come up will be sources that are, Christians should absolutely advocate for gun control.
Yeah.
And you would see that as a reflection of more mainline denominations. And then you'll get a little further, and there will be some nuance, or some people who are just handling it from a, like, what does the Bible say perspective, and they really don't say a ton in those articles. And then you will see others that I would say would be more on the right, would say, Christians should advocate for individual freedom, and the government should integrate. And so I think even your perspective of how you engage in this as a Christian is affected by those things.
Well, I think it's important to acknowledge it's not a black and white biblical issue.
Yeah.
So I do think that there are those on both sides who act like it is. And that's just bad hermeneutics. That's bad study of the Bible. So I do think this issue is one with tension for a Christian. I think it should be. I think that it is true that if you take the ability for good people, use good, but people who will act rightly to protect, if you take that ability away, then you are indeed endangering innocent people. At the same time, there are constantly laws being made by government that do restrict personal freedoms for the good of the society. It is illegal to do certain things that would harm others and potentially bring harm upon others. So I think we need to acknowledge that. I think the liberal argument is, do this ban on, certainly certain level weapons and all these things. The problem with that is that those weapons are already out there. So the bad guys are going to keep the weapons, like they're not going to turn them in. They're not going to, they're not going to, they're going to find a way to acquire those things because of wealth. And so you would be endangering people by doing that. And so I don't think you can just do that and not have consequences that come along with that as well. There's other countries where people have less access to those kind of weapons where maybe a ban would be more fruitful and less harmful. So I think we need to acknowledge that. But I do think as a Christian, like, man, how can we make sure, like, why are we against figuring out ways to try and restrict
access,
Right.
Make it harder, to get access. I do think as believers we should be open to that, cautious, but open to that. Yeah,
I agree. And there's really not. I don't think that there's necessarily an easy answer to it or an easy path forward. Like you mentioned before, there are just many things you're holding in tension here, and when it comes to opinions, policy, when you're holding so many things in tension, you just have to really just say, okay, what's the next step we need to take in this?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that the number of people that have assault rifles in our country need to have assault rifles.
Yeah.
I think I understand why people say, hey, if, no, I mean, I understand, but I just think it is kind of a fear-based mindset. But I also, I think it is very anti-American to come in and say, hey, you can't have guns. Just being real, So I also understand that. But I would just say whatever we do, there are consequences, and if we're going to continue to allow there to be the access there is, I think we also need to be okay with the fact that there may come a day when we are spending a lot more tax dollars on protecting our children.
Yeah.
So are we willing to do that? I think we have to be open to that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I think, we've seen the sentiment on social media when people would keep saying, like, prayers are not enough, and that's difficult because first of all, it's not the right thing to say at the moment, for these grieving
The kids
people.
were praying.
Right, exactly.
It's like, oh my gosh.
That statement gets to me.
Yeah. But I think, too,
Gavin
that it does show, like, that you can't – it's a lot of what you're saying. Like, there are things that we are tackling, illegal drugs. We're not just like, well, everybody's
got to do them. Yeah.
Be illegal. You can't stop the criminal. No, we have things that we do. And I know that some of those things are in place, but it's like, are we putting the task force, the money, like you said, the tax dollars to prevent as much illegal behavior as possible, And there's probably varying opinions on that for sure.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So another law that's come out in the media after things like this happen, you have the initial story and then you kind of have all these backlash opinions and things that are going on. But some articles have come out saying that there is a trend towards a lot of the shooters being transgender. And so is there validity in that? But then some articles are saying, no, that's not true. So is that really an issue, or is it even a point to consider?
I think it's hard to know as of now. I think that's part of it. I think, you start transgender individuals are such a small percentage of the population, and then you hear of violent incidents involving them, and it does cause you to say, okay, I feel like I'm hearing a disproportionate number of that. Again, they're not like the majority, there are those that are acting like the trend is all these shooters, are transgender. No, it's not that, but it's saying like, hey, we're starting to notice a trend of this, and I think I definitely think that and I've seen conflicting lists, but I definitely think if you had a few white Christian nationalists who did this, that there would certainly be a group of our media who would be like, uh-oh, we need to watch this. So I don't understand why that same group wouldn't say, hey, there's been a few incidences here. We need to pay attention. We need to pay attention to this. And I think, but I think it's dangerous to lump all transgender individuals into one group, and say this is where that goes. No, not necessarily, you know. But I do think as a believer that certainly someone who is transgender is confused, and you could see how that identity crisis would begin to really create great instability in their life. I mean, this person, I can't even remember the name, and I apologize for that. They were apparently into demonic activity and things like that too. So I think there's a whole nother layer.
Right. One article I was reading about all of this was pointing to the fact that yes, there's people try to pinpoint whether it was transgender or Christian nationalist or this ethnicity, but his point was there is almost a singular common denominator in all mass shootings. It's not universal, but the single most common denominator is absentee fathers in the relationships. And he wasn't saying it's not divorced. It's almost every single one has no relationship with their father. And so I think that, why aren't we talking about that specifically in our culture that, now where there's so much push, you as a man, you feel like there's so much against, masculinity. And it's well, this is a very singular common denominator in all of these is the lack of relationship with a father. What are we doing about that? And then you could push that further into specific groups of people. But I think that is a specific issue. And yes, what you're talking about, mention of the demonic activity, that absolutely, I wouldn't say that there is demonic force behind any mass violence like this because it's evil, right? Whether or not every mass shooter is under demonic influence, we can't say that. Certainly there's many other factors, but the fact that is being talked about with this shooter, absolutely.
How, as believers, we've kind of seen maybe some incorrect ways of how to respond to this. Posting quickly seems to be fault of a lot of people's, not thinking things through. That just brings insensitivity to it, maybe not knowing the whole story, to trying to let people grieve. But how should we as believers respond when something like this has happened? What's the appropriate? Is there a right way?
Yeah, James 1:19-17 says, everyone be swift to listen, slow to anger, slow to speak. So, believer, if you are quick to anger on your Facebook post or Instagram post, or I don't know if people tweet still, you're not doing what God's word says. Yeah. And if you're not listening to the facts and you're speaking quickly, you're not doing what God's word says. And I just think that's where, when it comes to the gun control, it comes to the transgender thing on both sides, people are just have an agenda, and they just want to support that agenda. And it's your agenda may be right, but it's not. God cares about how you argue, not just what you argue. And I think that we need to reflect Christ in those spaces. And I want to go back and just double down on it. And I think part of that in a tragedy like this is keeping your opinion to yourself, at least for a period of time, so that people mourning and the tragedy is acknowledged.
Yeah, that was the first.
Unless you're going to fix it, right? Unless you're going to save more lives. I'm not saying if you're there in your security guard, you're
give them their time.
Yeah. Agree. That was the first passage that came to mind too, was from the book of James. And I think we're so quick to act like these things are just easy fixes or easy solutions, and it's just not, as most things in life aren't easy, quick solutions. And so having opinions, fine, that's not wrong, but I think trying to understand even your own opinion and why you have that opinion, and understand others in that, and like you said, just not rushing to what seem and feel like quick solutions in it.
Yeah, because every time something like this happens, like when we get in those like arguments, what we're not realizing is all around us listening are people who this reminds them of a murder in their family. This reminds them of the loss of a child. This reminds them of some injustice that happened to them. And so they're like, I don't like the word triggered, but they're reminded of their grief. They're reminded of their feelings of why, God, do you allow this to happen? And then here you are with this like inflammatory language, and they may never be saying anything. And I think we need to recognize that as God's people in those moments, and I will just kind of deviate and say, like, I mean, these things cause us to long for heaven. This is not, this is brokenness. Yeah. This is an extreme example of brokenness, but it is a reminder that we're not made for this world. And, and Christianity is not all the answers, but it tells us what the answer isn't. Is that it's not that God's up there watching the suffering and saying, y'all deal with it. I mean, this is, God is patient, waiting for those to come to repentance, to make all things new. God suffered for us. And so I think he's near to the brokenhearted, because he says he is, and I think that's our hope. And that's what we can do, is we can represent that in these moments,
Yeah. That's
Agreed.
Good. Well, a lot of wisdom there. Thanks, guys, for your thoughts on
Next
that.
week, we're going to talk about unicorns. And
Something lighter.
I don't know what else. Done.
Do you think there were unicorns?
I don't know. My daughter thinks there were.
You don't know?
No, I'm just
I think
kidding.
there were dragons.
I mean,
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I do. Because how many cultures have dragons like in their ancient?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's lots of study on that.
That's kind of coincidental, isn't
That's
it?
true,
It's like
yeah.
most cultures have a flood, in their ancient documents, because there was a flood.
Because there was
Right?
a flood.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
So,
and you
like-
see the drawings. Yeah, you hear it in ancient
You're like, it was
literature.
just regional. Yeah, for a very big
Everybody,
region.
Yes.
yeah.
We'll go with that. But,
Yeah.
But same
Yeah.
with dragons. Like,
Yeah.
it's like
I mean,
white people and, Asian people, have dragons. And
I was
they're-
wondering where you were going with that.
No, I mean,
I
like,
was
It was like
Europeans.
unicorns?
I know.
Not white people.
I was wondering where you were going.
Europeans and Asians in their history,
Yeah.
independent of one another, have dragons.
I see where
It's
you're
all
going.
there.
And one of those
It's
things
all
described
there.
in the Bible could very well be a dragon.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Agreed.
that's true.
Yeah.
One day
What
we'll
happened
know.
to the dragon, though? The unicorns killed it.
The flood.
They are
The flood.
deceptively.
No, I think they were more recent than that.
Really?
Yeah.
The dragons?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I mean, like the little reptile dragon? Or what?
I'm speechless
Maybe-
because I
maybe that-
have
maybe
not
that could
thought
be our
about
topic
that,
next
honestly.
week.
So I haven't given much thought to the recent history of dragons. I don't know.
Well, if you have any ideas on what happened to the dragons, please email me
Oh, man.
at
We're gonna get some
kelly@churchonbayshore.org. And thanks for tuning in, guys, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Boggy Talk. We are so glad you joined in the conversation. Go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss a beat.